Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. I'll be keeping these recaps spoiler-free and welcome fans, new and old, to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 7. All right, so this week we're talking about season 7, episode 18, Little Box of Horrors. So in this episode, we are kind of very much on a monster of the week type of focus, our villain being the demon Katya, and then our innocent being Hope, as well as the rest of the world and her friend Darcy. In terms of our individual storylines for the sisters, so for Piper's side storylines, we see that in this episode, her and Leo are coping with Wyatt going through a magical form of the terrible twos. Instead of throwing tantrums or crying, he is using his powers in order to not listen to his parent. For example, orbing away when Leo's trying to give him a bath, going to different parts of the house, using his toys with magic, and eventually kind of learning a lesson when he hits himself in the head with one of them. Though at the end of the episode, Piper does seem to change her mind because early on she's like, Wyatt, you're in timeout, like no powers when you're in timeout, and really concerned that he needs to listen and that he could start orbing all around town and doing things that are obviously dangerous in terms of keeping him safe since he is so young, and also potential exposure. So I do understand her reactions, though obviously she does calm down on this because she does have a conversation with Phoebe when she's kind of like, hey, like, you know, magical boys will be magical boys, which apparently Leo has also said to her, which is why she's making Leo watch The Boys all day so that he sees what she's been actually experiencing. And she's like, look, I am fine with him being magical. I would have bound his powers at birth if I wasn't okay. I'm just worried about what's gonna happen if he doesn't learn how to use them properly, and that there's a good time and place to use them, and that it's not okay to just be using his powers without permission at this age. So I very much understand where she's coming from in that parenting perspective. And I also really like that final family scene where they're together with the two boys and Piper's like, okay, why don't you show mommy the tricks you've been practicing? Like, it's okay to do it right now. Because again, when we say it's okay, but you can't just use your powers however you want. So I do get that. And then also them kind of talking about the fact that Chris is going to start coming into his powers soon too, which I am looking forward to seeing. And it is, again, a really nice family moment, them coming to an understanding together where Leo's like, yeah, like he has been doing too much, but look, it figured itself out with him having that realization that there are consequences to magic sometimes by hitting himself in the head with a toy. So I really liked their side storyline and I thought it was really cute and obviously played into some of the humor in the episode with Wyatt scaring people by orbing in front of people who hadn't really seen magic before and things like that. So I thought that that was a fun little side story, and also obviously had a lot to do with their family development, which has been a thing this season. In terms of Phoebe's side storyline, so she doesn't really have a storyline outside of things. The one thing that comes up with her character in this episode is that she's moved into this new phase of optimism. In her conversations with Hope, she talks a lot about her early experiences as a witch and that fear that came with not having someone to guide them. I think sometimes the show forgets that they weren't actually trained by their mom and Grams, but rather just what they had written for them in the book and having these little moments with their spirits, and that the sisters really did have to teach themselves a lot of things. And the same way like Paige then learned from her sisters, I think she had more of that guiding force than the other two sisters did. So I like that Phoebe brings this up because we did always kind of experience Phoebe as someone who was comfortable with being a witch and wanted this destiny, but also obviously there was some fear there for her, and I like the way that this episode brings that up and the way she talks to Hope and the way that Hope's name comes up twice as this idea of like internal hope, right? And that can save a lot of things. So I did like those moments for Phoebe of getting to act as a guide to Hope and having those really nice conversations and convincing speeches with her throughout the episode. In terms of Paige's individual storyline, so she does start out the episode having this horrible, like, ringy, jackhammer type sound in her ears, and she's thinking it's like some type of like ear problem. So Phoebe's bringing her this like tea to try to help her, but then also being like, hey, like, do you think it's all in your head? And Paige obviously gets really pissed off about that. Then when she tells Leo about what he's experiencing, he's saying that's probably a call from the elders before he learned how to control his powers. It used to drive him insane. And so she decides to meet up with one of the elders at magic school, obviously because Piper would not want an elder in the house. And so Sandra shows up, and Sandra mentions that there is this like high alert out to all whitelighters, and that's probably why she's hearing it, and that they've sensed a threat. They don't know exactly what's going on at this point, because while Piper and Phoebe are figuring out the stuff with Pandora's box, Paige is not let in on that just yet. And then there's this idea that, you know, she's coming into her whitelighter powers, and Paige is like, well, I don't want anything to do with that, or you guys. Like, I don't want to work with you. Like, get this away from me. How do we stop it? And Sandra's kind of like, hey, like, this is your destiny, just like becoming a witch was. Like, you can't run from it. And then Leo suggests that maybe she should help a future whitelighter instead of dealing with whatever this thing is. And Paige is like, hey, if it's gonna stop the noise, I'm in. Let's do it. So they send her to this elevator that she's waiting inside. She's going up and down for quite a while, and then she gets inside with a couple that's going through counseling and fighting a lot, a guy who's a little bit like flirtatious with her at one point and a little bit like trying to do everything and be Mr. like, oh, look what I can do, and then a little girl who is going down from her father's office to meet her mother in the lobby. So the elevator gets stuck, and then the ringing eventually stops, and Paige realizes that one of these people is who she has to help. We find out the little girl has asthma and doesn't have her inhaler, so we think that the issue might be her, that's who Paige is meant to help. And then we see that as everyone's freaking out within there, the couple is fighting. The guy decides to climb up and try to fix some wires to get it working again, whereas everyone else is like, hey, like, that's really fucking dangerous, don't do that. And the little girl does start having some breathing troubles because Paige is kind of the one serving as kind of like a caretaker to her and kind of like holding her throughout the experience. The guy electrocutes himself and falls to the ground. His heart has stopped. Paige is like, oh my God, and like calls the husband over to help her with CPR. Then the little girl starts having an asthma attack. The woman runs over to her, the wife, and Paige tells her to sing to her, that will help get her breathing under control. So they are able to save the man and get the little girl calmed down. And then eventually the elevator opens, and we see that the husband and wife, during those times where they have to help Paige with these tasks, start getting along and kind of being like, look, like, you can do it, I believe in you, and like being proud of each other and kind of coming back together from their issues, from this shared experience of saving people. So that was really cute. Then we see when the elevator reopens, the little girl runs to her parents, and the paramedics come for the guy. At the end of the episode, Paige is on top of Golden Gate Bridge meeting with Sandra, and she's kind of like, look, like, I don't know if I'm ready to be a whitelighter. And Sandra points out that this might be the next part of her destiny. The same way that she was meant to be a charmed one, she is meant to be a whitelighter. That's why her powers are growing, and this is awakening for her. And that maybe this is what she's been searching for this whole time. Her own individual destiny, separate from her sisters, could be on this half whitelighter path. And Paige isn't sure about it, but then asks, you know, so which one was it? Who was the future whitelighter I was meant to save? And Sandra said that it was her, and it made me tear up in the episode. It's even making me tear up now. Like, that was so cute, and I think this is so key to Paige's development, taking that step away from magic school and now realizing a whole new future for herself. I have been wondering when Paige's whitelighter self was going to get activated. Obviously, because I've seen the show before, I knew it was going to happen. I just couldn't remember if it was in season 7 or season 8, so I did really like seeing that in this episode. In terms of our kind of together storyline here, so the episode starts off with a woman, Nina, who is in an alley. This demon, Katya, shows up, who is one of the baddest bitches I've ever seen on this show. Like, shout out to her, stunningly beautiful woman. They start fighting, and it's clear that one of them is hurt and stabbed in their altercation. It is a really, really well choreographed fight scene as well, I will say, and the box disappears. But then we see Nina show up at the sisters and is kind of like, hey, like, I know you guys are the charmed ones, I need your help. Pandora's box moved on to the next guardian. I'm supposed to train her, like, you have to help me find her. So they're scrying, they're trying to figure things out. Eventually they locate that it's at UC Berkeley. So on on campus, we see this young blonde girl and her best friend are on their way to the dorms. They're talking about boy troubles and class and typical college types of things. Darcy, the best friend, has to get to her next thing. Hope goes into her room where she finds Pandora's box sitting on her bed. She opens it for just a second, hearing all these whispers, and this tiny bit of sorrow escapes, but she quickly closes it. Piper and Nina show up. We see this tiny bit of sorrow because Phoebe had stayed behind to talk with Sandra, and so they go into the room. Piper's trying to like break the news subtly, whereas Nina just like blurts out like, hey, you have this magical destiny, and it's kind of like, what the hell? But then it's quickly revealed that Nina is actually Katya. She leaves with the box. The entire room is destroyed. Phoebe shows up because she had just had a talk with Sandra, who had revealed that the box would only move on to the next guardian if the first was dead. So now she knows that it was Katya, and Piper's like, yeah, like we already figured that out. And Hope is very freaked out. She's like, you blew up my whole room. Like, why should I trust you people? They're like, look, we can help you with this. And that's when Phoebe kind of brings up her own fear in not having a guide when she first became a witch, and is like, you have to come with us though. So they're back at the manor, they're talking to her, they're trying to figure everything out, figure out a plan of what to do next. Then they eventually have a moment where, as they're explaining things to Hope, she doesn't want anything to do with it. She just wants to leave. She doesn't want part of her destiny, and she accidentally activates her powers and throws Phoebe across the room and leaves. She is kidnapped by Katya, who is in the dorm waiting for her, and says that she has her friend. But then when they're in Katya's cave, there is this reveal that, you know, she is talking to her very nicely. She's like, look, like, I won't hurt you. I just need you to open the box for me. Because we had seen Katya and her minion trying to open it, but it's clear that only the Guardian has the ability. And part of the reason why she's doing this is to impress Zanku. She's always been considered lower as a demon and wants this chance to rise in the ranks, make a name for herself, all of that. The sisters eventually figure out what's going on, who Katya is, after finding a little bit of information about her in a book at magic school. So Phoebe and Piper do arrive at the cave just after Hope has said no to doing what Katya wanted, and then Katya pulls out her best friend to be like, look, like, I'm gonna hurt her too if you don't do what I want. So that's then when the sisters show up. There's a kind of a little bit of an altercation that takes place. They kill the minion, and then Katya leaves with the box after she's convinced Hope to open it. So that's when we see her go to the other side of the cave because they're looking for Darcy. She shapeshifts into Darcy after just kind of like throwing her across the cave and hides the box. So they go back to the manor, and Katya as Darcy is trying to convince Hope that like this isn't her destiny. She doesn't have to listen to them. She can just do whatever she wants. Phoebe is eventually like, look, like we have to just let her go. Like we can't make her do this. We can't force her to follow her destiny. She's like, but Hope, I want to show you how to contact us in case you need us later. This is after Paige has arrived back as well. So she sends Piper and Darcy downstairs to wait while she talks to Hope. Hope comes down and they're kind of like, all right, time to go. And then as soon as they step outside, Katya reveals that she's actually Katya and teleports both of them back to the cave, is telling Hope that she has to kill her because the next guardian hasn't been born yet, and Hope is the only person who can stop this. And Hope's like, look, I want nothing to do with this destiny. She's like, but you will. In time, you'll come to accept who you are and you'll want to save the world, and I'm not letting that happen. So when she pulls out the dagger, Paige, who is disguised as Hope, orbs it away, reveals who she truly is, throws the potion that vanquishes her. Paige finds the real Darcy, orbs her back to the manor where everyone is waiting, and they summon the stuff back into the box, and that is when it's revealed that they're gonna be okay. Hope has kind of accepted her destiny, which is a really cute moment. So that's how we kind of wrap up everything here with a nice little clean ending. I do really love, again, the individual lessons that the sisters went through. I thought the Pandora's box storyline was really cute, and I liked the way that at the end, Darcy was the one who had knowledge that what was left at the bottom of the box was Hope, which was the other connection to her name and was really adorable. And I overall just thought this was a really, really enjoyable one. Again, not pushing forward major storylines in terms of our great bad of the season that I'm thinking is going to be Zanku, but definitely some character development for sisters. Paige coming into her whitelighter self, I am curious to see if that will be a continuous storyline for the rest of the season. Piper struggling with stuff with Wyatt coming into his powers, which has obviously been an ongoing thing in the last few episodes. And then Phoebe in this new kind of like optimistic phase, which I wonder if that will continue throughout the rest of the season as well. But yeah, this was a really enjoyable episode and definitely leaves me curious to see what is coming next as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. But yeah, that's all I have for this one, and I hope you'll join me back next time.